Hello, everyone out there. It is Beth Stelzer here from Save Women's Sports, and I have a really fun interview to bring to you today. One of my dear friends, she's up in Canada, Linda Blade, coach extraordinaire on Twitter. Why don't you give us a brief introduction for those who don't know you?
Well, hello everybody. Hope you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
No, I am a coach in Canada. Actually, I was in the States for my college career, NCAA, University of Maryland team
from
captain,
Title IX.
and benefited from Title IX. I was team captain, grateful to the University of Maryland for so many things. And used that education to come back to Canada, got some advanced degrees in human biology and kinesiology, and then just
You're not always
coaching.
talking about that on Twitter. You should.
That's right. And I did a PhD research on sexual dimorphism in children. So I actually, it's right down my alley. And I thought I would be a prof in doing anthropometric studies on, physiological differences. Didn't work out for me because I had traveled to Africa and back a number of times. We worked with United Nations. So I just came back to Edmonton in Canada and got a job right away. Did some help with the Edmonton Oilers hockey team. And then I got recruited into helping figure skaters train for the Olympics because track and field, as you know, helps you with your speed and with your jumping ability. So it turns out that there's a lot of sports that need some input from track coaches. And so I kind of
runs the gamut, like all ages.
Yeah, it does.
You've had experience with.
All these years later, I've worked with athletes in over 17 sports. When you think even of swimmers, like when the swimmer does a turn on the water and then pushes off the wall, that's actually a jump. So I can actually help them get stronger, like explosive. And so they're just interesting things that you can do if you combine a PhD in kinesiology and sports sciences with knowledge in track and field, which is the foundational element of most sports, run, jump, throw. And so I've actually just had a private business, just consulting, helping beginners. Like I work with little kids, people who just starting in the sport. On the one end, a lot of people hate me saying this, but in some ways I see it as the athlete factory where you get the little ones coming in the door and then we work with them through the conveyor belts, teaching them all the different skills. And then by the time they exit the exit door, they're Ferraris, we get them out onto the big track and the world level. And so it's kind of like, it's really literally like working in the athlete factory and all the stages along the way of long-term athlete development. We call it LTAD. And so I've been very blessed because I've been able to do that and be a mom. One of the perks of being a private consultant is that when my children were in school, I could always be home when they came at the end of the day because I didn't ever book any athletes right at that time. So I could sort of always be where my family needed me to be at the time, and then work other times a day. I could just sort of book my clients when I could do it, which is consulting work. Was just amazing. And so here we are all these years later, and now I'm president. I got elected as president of track and field in Alberta, president of the board. Even though I'm still coaching, it's just a volunteer position as in governance. And so I was elected into a governance position by my peers, which is a huge honor as well. And that was back in 2014. So I've actually been president for quite a while. Don't tell anybody. I should move on. But anyway, it was in the middle of that time that I was president that I ran into this trans thing. So we can talk about it. But it was basically when I started looking at the sport policy sort of at the national level that I started to say, what?
Whoa,
what?
Right?
Unbelievable. And that was around 2018. So sort of I've kind of been in that little fight for about 3 years. And since I couldn't really, when I was in the back room, Beth, trying to talk to people about it and saying like, I've got, with a PhD in biology and basically doing all this research on sexual dimorphism and then coaching athletes and seeing the differences between even little boys and little girls and all the way up. And then of course, magnified through puberty. I just basically couldn't believe anybody would be talking about maybe trying to squeeze a male body into a sport.
It is absurd.
So you know what? That's when I got to Twitter. like, I know I started my Twitter account way back 2008. I wasn't very active, and most of it was just little sports videos and stuff. And then
And Linda
I
is
just
at Coach Blade, everybody. Follow her on Twitter
at Coach
Coach
Blade,
Blade.
that's who I
And
am.
then follow at Save Women's Sports.
And then at Women's Sports is Beth. And Beth, I think I am hogging the limelight. I want you to explain how you came in to, because I'm always amazed at what you did to get involved in this stuff.
So I always just assume everybody knows that I'm just a Minnesota mom. I'm a housewife. And I found sports a little later in life and got empowered through powerlifting and carved out this time to become an athlete, to train my butt off, to feel like I was confident and strong enough to be in the women's state powerlifting competition. And there, a male basically threw a temper tantrum and disrupted the whole event because he wasn't allowed to compete as a woman. So that's what threw me down the rabbit hole. And then seeing how so many women are silenced, bullied, losing opportunities, jobs, even, I had to speak up. That's me.
Well, and you can't, I can't understate or overstate, I guess I should say, too much what you've been able to accomplish, Beth, because you and I were both involved in, we both linked in with Fair Play for Women back in 2019.
Right, and they're an excellent women's organization over in the UK run by Nicola Williams. And so
Nicola Williams
kind of made a connection through there because they were one of the only other women's organizations speaking out for this.
The only one.
We got to do something closer to home. And here we are. And now in 2 years, basically, we've gone from just this little website compiling information to international coalition, non-partisan, stretching all backgrounds, making laws in the United States. And it's an amazing thing.
I know. So you have Rowena Edge in New Zealand and Catherine Deves in Australia who have combined forces in Save Women's Sports Australasia. And awesome. So they are on board and they're doing great work in their respective countries now.
And so we've got give Kath some credit. Kath just got her lawyer degree, and she has been pushing so hard for women and children over there. And
in Australia.
Ro has been amazing at taking on savewomensport.com. So drop the S and you can get all the information closer to home there if you're across the world. So we are branching out UK, Australia, New Zealand, Canada up with you. I'm working with some people on the ground in Japan. We're going to have a team ready to go for the Olympics. Working at Save Women's Sports Germany, hopefully here. So, and we're branching out on the state levels too. So if anybody is out there wanting to be kind of a state representative for Save Women's Sports, email info@Save Women's Sports and we can get you on the team. And we are getting really grassroots organized, and we're going to take this on. Because it's at that level that we can fight back, because that's how they did it. They snuck on the boards to sneak in these laws without asking us. So it's time to take back our voice.
They were sneaky. They worked through the organizations at ground level to implement policies, and they didn't tell anybody and they didn't consult with anybody. So you know what? It's all within our level of sphere of influence, where we can go to our local sports communities and associations, and we can do it too. We can change the rules again.
We're showing that.
Yeah. And so please, I don't even know all the latest on what you've been doing, because Beth, every time I look, you're traveling somewhere, doing this thing, speaking to that legislature, talking to those senators.
It's been a blur. It's been a blur. We didn't expect this, but it's a common sense issue and it's getting picked up. We have 32 states that have introduced legislation just this session. So basically since the beginning of the year. And we have Mississippi, Tennessee, Arkansas that have all signed theirs into law this year. Of course, last year, Idaho was the first state ever to really step up and protect female athletes with the help of Representative Barbara Ehart.
Barbara, she's our hero.
She is an amazing woman, and she has been a powerhouse as well, traveling around testifying how this law has benefited their state and really kind of shutting up the bullies and empty threats. Anyway, so I have been traveling around anywhere we can. We send letters of support. We gather more testifiers. I am going to North Carolina here. I'm not sure when we'll
Nice.
release this video, but we have a
Oh,
hearing
wow.
there this week, so I'll be flying out for that.
Hmm.
It's really interesting to see how in the United States, each state is run a little bit
Yeah.
differently. And then
Yeah.
within that, each committee within the House or the Senate is run a little bit differently. So it's been
Hmm.
really interesting as what I would
Hmm.
call myself an average American woman to find out how
Yeah.
politics really work and how
Yeah.
to make a difference. But yeah, we have been testifying, meeting with legislators, doing the work, and it's
Yeah.
showing.
Well, you know what? You're my hero, because this is so hard to do for most people, Beth, and you found a way to actually make a connection to the point where entire states of the great United States of America are labeling some of their
Yeah,
bills
oh,
are
don't
Save
make me
Women's
cry.
Sports
Yeah,
bills.
it's
It's
so crazy.
just such, it's an amazing thing. But you know what? Here's what I keep thinking, like, as I listen to you say this, it occurs to me that the trans activists, the TRAs, they actually discovered the same thing you're discovering, but they did that almost 15 years ago.
They're
So
far
we're
ahead of
about,
us.
yeah,
Yeah.
they were 15 years ahead of us, sneakily putting in all these policies on the ground, and now we just finally all discover it. And then when we try to push back, we realize it's so entrenched in laws and policies and documents, and everybody thinks, well, those people did it, so we should do it. The IOC is doing it, so we should do it. And it's just like, it's a bunch of passing the buck. So it's such a inspiration, Beth, to see you and individual states, the United States, just say, look, like, you guys can say what you want to say, but we know what a woman is. We know what a man is. We know that sports is single sex spaces. Like, it's just, you can't mix the sports categories like that, because it doesn't work. It takes all the meaning out of sports.
And it's really good to see that they stood up to
They
Biden.
know it.
It was so
Exactly.
disheartening to see Biden with his executive orders
Oh,
basically erase women's rights. And then on International
exactly.
Women's Day, erase Title IX, basically, because
Exactly.
including gender identity with sex erases what the definition of
Yeah.
sex is. This is common sense, right? So
So
yeah,
gender identity, let's just explain that. Because in Canada, what I'm noticing is when our country actually made a law, which is what everybody was, Jordan Peterson, anybody who knows Jordan Peterson, that's what he was complaining about, the pronouns. And our country made a law where you can't discriminate on the basis of gender identity, but they did not remove the law that said you can't discriminate on the basis of sex. And everybody agrees with that in general. But what they do is they try to hide that and they try to act like gender identity, which is how you express, your personal sort of personality, your foundational biological reality is your sex, but then your identity is just kind of how you identify, like how you want to see yourself. We can all accept that those are two different things, but to have the self-identity thing sort of override your biological sex in terms of being more important, more relevant, no, like there's a lot of places in society, a lot of most situations in society that deal with your, man or woman, your biological sex. Those are like the medicine and sport, like all kinds of places where it really does matter that you are a biological female or a biological
need to
male.
override feelings in some places.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
we
really,
can't
your
play nice
identity.
all the time. I'm sorry if that hurts some people's feelings, but these really do make a difference. And I used to
It
work
really
in a
does.
hospital laboratory, and it
Yeah.
really gets me thinking about normal ranges and everything. They're different for
Mhm.
men versus women. What if I
Yeah.
mess something up and somebody really is having a
Could
heart
die.
attack because I used the wrong normal range because their chart said female
Exactly.
and they were really a male?
Mhm.
There's so many branches to this
Yeah,
tree, right,
it
Linda?
is. That's why
And
it's just
it's
hitting
gonna be hard
everybody.
to restrict our conversation. I think
I
that we could
know.
keep talking for hours and hours and
I
hours
know.
because
But
it's
let me just
just
say
so
this.
pervasive.
I want to say one thing about that though. Like, if we can't accept that gender identity and sex are two different things, then you're really missing the point, because, and especially when it comes to sports. So let's bring it back to sports, Beth. If we say that we're going to recognize some sort of category in sport based on your gender identity, like Biden wants us to do, instead of biological sex, which Title IX insists that we should do, then what we're saying is it's an idea in somebody's head or a self-perception that allows them to categorize in sport, which is the same as saying we should split sports on the basis of your religion. So it's an ideology. So it's basically like saying, well, we're going to have, instead of saying male and female categories,
race.
yeah, like we're going to split it up by how, basically whether you're Democrat or Republican. So if all the Republicans going to race in that race and all the Democrats over here, or the same thing with religion, all the Catholics here, all the Muslims over there. So it's a way of dividing things in sport that makes absolutely no sense, because it has nothing to do, like, it's not my business. Actually, as a sports administrator, if you want to sign up for one of my track meets, why would I ask you your religion? Or why would I ask you your political party? Why would I even ask you your gender identity? Like, if you were a male body and you came dressed in a dress, you're still a male body. Go ahead and compete with the men, and we won't bully you. That's your ideology. You can run in whatever you want. And even if you self-identify or whatever, we will respect that. But in this way, it's really none of our business. You run in the biological category that you should run in. And, they're making it so much more complicated than that. And shame on the IOC for pandering to that.
Exactly, because they're kind of setting the standard of disaster.
Yes. Well, you know what it is? I just said it today in an email, and so I actually retweeted it. But, it's basically, it's like fiddling with the volume dial to fix the picture on the TV. Like, it's like the testosterone. So if you're going to say, we're going to, like, some sports will allow this level of testosterone or that level of testosterone. So fiddling with the testosterone dial doesn't change, like, whatever level of testosterone you think you need to make it, quote, fair. It doesn't change the fact that the picture is a man is trying to get into a women's sport.
It's still someone with XY chromosomes, and a woman is not a hormone level.
Right. So you're basically, that's right. So you're dialing up and down, trying to figure out the right testosterone level to fit men into women's sports. And it doesn't change the picture on the TV. That's like changing the volume to fix the picture. The picture is males and females are completely different. And we have 6,000 variables biologically, whether it's a cellular level, at the gross, like, structural anatomy level. There's many variables that make a man different than a woman.
You can dig up bones 10,000 years after death and still know what they are. I want a quick touch back base, though, on the IOC before we get that. We, together with over 40 organizations across the world, sent a letter with over 15,000 signatures from concerned people across the globe to the IOC, to the actual International Olympic Committee, and they responded to us.
Surprisingly, they did, because it's that they didn't respond to 60 female Olympians the year before, which was 2019, right?
Right.
So they basically said, they kind of acknowledged in their letter that, we realize there's a problem with our policy and our consensus from 2015, allowing men to come into self-declare into women's sports and adjusting the T levels. We're just somehow going to have to fix that, but it can't be done. It would be unethical for us to change that policy before the next Olympics. And of course, as you know, Beth, our response in our letter was, would you say that if we reported to you that somebody was cheating, like by doping, would you say it'd be unethical to tell them to stop doping before the next Olympics? Like, it's just so crazy, Beth.
It is. It is. It's
like, what
absurd
in the world?
That we even need to be having this conversation. I say that often.
Hey, that letter, by the way, I hope you don't mind that series of back and forth letters. So ours to them, their response, and then our response back is actually in the appendix in my upcoming book. I hope you don't mind that I included that.
Oh, yes. Let's plug your book. I don't think everyone is aware that Linda here has been really putting her nose to the grind and getting a book done. And
gosh,
it's well on its way, isn't it? Shouldn't we
it is like
it soon? Hopefully.
It's been, oh man, Beth, it's been out there for quite a while. And then I had submitted thinking it was completely submitted, last November, end of November, December. And I thought it would be out beginning of the year. And then Biden issued that executive order. Then I got it back from the editor to put in a chapter. I had to add a chapter. But let me tell you what the title of the book is.
Please tell us.
Okay.
Oh,
The title is Unsporting: How Trans Activism and Science Denial Are Destroying Sport.
perfect.
And it's just about this whole deal. And one my co-author, I think she's a co-author, but she's really kind of my look over the shoulder person, is Barbara Kay in Canada. She's a very famous journalist here in Canada. And thanks to Barbara, I mean, I wouldn't have gotten anywhere with this, actually. I mean, I'm not regularly a book writer. This is my first non-academic book.
And she's on Twitter too, at Barbara K. K-A-Y.
Yeah, at Barbara Kay. Barbara Kay, shout out to you, Barbara. Fantastic lady, one of the only journalists in Canada who has the guts to stand up for what a woman is. And so I felt like our partnership was actually quite, it was very fortuitous, I would say. I can't even describe like how bizarre it seemed to me. Some little coach in Edmonton and is getting, to be encouraged by somebody of Barbara's stature to, help write a book. And so I'm forever appreciative, actually. So Barbara's been fantastic. She's so humble in the sense that she just doesn't want to take any kind of credit for this, but she's helped me a lot. And anyway, I just going to say that it's there. I've done the audiobook for it. I've written everything. They've already designed the cover. I mean, I would say it's within days or weeks of this thing finally being out for pre-orders.
Wait. Oh, I'm so
I know.
happy for you.
It's been a long time. And I want to be one very, very clear. My book is not anti-trans per se, it's anti-trans activists. In other words, I mean, obviously I endorse having distinct sex boundaries. So if anybody wants to call that anti-trans, I guess they can, but there's trans men who need us to draw those boundaries. So everybody, like, it's interesting, isn't it? These headlines that we all read, that where it's like banning trans from sports in the state legislatures in the USA. We're not banning anybody. We're just saying, if you happen to be trans as a female, you can still be with the women in the sport. Well, it will, accommodate, of course, unless you're doping and cheating, but that's different. If you're doping and you're taking testosterone as a female, you would be getting an advantage. So that would be, disallowed. But if you're just identifying as a male, you still have female biology. We still have to acknowledge that. And you should still be allowed to compete with the females. That's fine. So it's not anti-trans at all. We're just saying the activism of it is that we're trying to say, listen, let's be real here. Stop being activists like the ACLU is.
They're screaming at us that we have to pander to their feelings, but yet they never consider our feelings. And if they truly felt like a woman, you would think they would understand what we're getting at here.
Even those Democrats and woke headlines banning trans, what they're saying is they only care about the male part of that problem, because when they say banning trans, they're just thinking trans women, like the males in women's sports. So, but they forget the fact that there are a lot of trans who are actually female and who need to be protected in the female sports category, because it won't be fair to the trans men. So the women who identify as male or men, right? It's not going to be fair to them if a male trans woman comes into the sport and competes with the trans men. So we are actually protecting trans people, but it happens to be the trans who are female.
What we're getting at is protecting fairness for all.
Yeah. It's not like we're banning anybody. We're just saying, go ahead and compete in your category.
Painted as a ban in so many of the headlines, because it's just painting us out to be this bad guy that we're not.
But it shows them to be misogynist, because all they're thinking about is the male trans people, the people who are male, who are trans and want to go into the female category. They aren't thinking at all about the people who are female and trans who want to be protected. They're not thinking about those people
circular
at all.
Arguments to this ideology. It's incredible what they get away
and
with.
Twitter is just like, it's just the ugliest place to be.
Let's talk about that a little bit. Like, Twitter has gotten to be an ugly battleground where it seems to be that people on our side are losing their accounts for simply saying that a man cannot be a woman, but yet a man who identifies as a woman can tell women like us that they should die in a grease fire,
Or
or
worse.
for example, pick on teenage girls like Selena Sewell, who is in this lawsuit, like,
Yeah.
and their accounts are fine, but yet you step out of line with this ideology and you don't have a place anymore in social media. And I think some people are starting to get a little scared, like, where are we going to go?
Yes, but you know what the big tech doesn't realize, and maybe they're blinded by their own size. They're so big and they think they can run our lives. But the truth is, Beth, we know this to be true, whether it's the CDs of music and then iTunes took over, or like there's always this next thing. If big tech is going to shut down women, we're 50% of the population. If they're going to shut down women, we'll find other places to go. Believe me, women, you can't stop women from talking, right, Beth? Like, we'll talk to each other. We'll find ways, and we just won't be on your platform. So good riddance. I mean, if you want to get rid of all the women who really believe that we are important, we exist, and you want to act like we don't exist, we're just a template for men to walk all over, then, go ahead and ban women for saying that they don't agree with that. I mean, it's just that you're showing yourselves, big tech and Twitter, to be the biggest bigots and misogynists in the whole wide world. And you're going to lose your market share, and, we'll go on to the next thing, because we had life before Twitter came along. And for now, it's the place where we talk. But if you don't want to be the marketplace of ideas, then we'll take our ideas to other platforms that will surely arise. I am not really that afraid of it. I mean, obviously right now, Twitter is the marketplace. We all sit there and we all talk our ideas on there, which has been, as sad and ugly as it is where I met you, at least where I met Nicola Williams and Fair Play for Women. And then I found people like you. So there was a value in it, and there is still lots of value in it. I think we are having, we do have to have the public square where we can chat. But if Twitter doesn't want to be the public square and they want to be bigoted, then we'll just go somewhere else. It's that simple. And I'm not afraid of that. We have other channels. We can talk.
That's right. That's right. And another way to keep connected is through savewomensports.com. You can sign up on our email list. And we're going to be expanding the website soon to have some other more interactive features for everyone. So,
and there's this other thing that, of course, everybody's heard of, the great Kara Dansky and the Women's Human Rights Campaign globally, International Declaration of
Women's Sex-Based Rights.
Women's Sex-Based Rights. And we have, like, now within the last 3 years, in Canada, Beth, we have COSBAR, which is the Canadian women's group. We have the WHRC, women's world, like the rights campaign for Canada. We have all kinds of different organizations. We the Females. We have all kinds of support groups in Canada popping up. And basically the international government, the main body that sort of connects with the WHRC part of it, the Declaration of Women's Sex-Based Rights, they are in how many different countries? I don't even know. Like, there's like, gosh, at least 100 countries. And we have weekly meetings on Saturday mornings. And we have women, like up to 500 women at a time, to join the Zoom call to listen to somebody, whether they're talking about, men and women's sports, men and women's prisons. And this is happening all over the world. And
it's so
I find it really inspiring, because if you think about the course of human history, women, let's say even 100 years ago or 150 years ago, would be in a village somewhere, only able to talk to their neighbors. And maybe sometimes you couldn't even talk to too many because you were on a farm and there might have been a lot of distance between you and the next person. And now I can talk to somebody in India or Australia. I mean, women have never in this history of humankind been ever able to talk to each other and compare notes and say, wait a minute, same thing happening in my neighborhood. Wait a minute. And you know what? I don't think anybody truly understands the power of that yet, Beth. I feel like we're going to understand it within, half a decade or more, what the impact of that really is, but it's actually truly astounding. So really these few trans activists, they have no idea what's coming. Like we women are just saying we've had it.
The tide
Enough.
is turning.
The tide is turning. The tsunami is starting to come in, and people don't understand that we're not having it.
We've had enough.
We are not having it.
We're not going to take it.
We're done.
And how do you put it? We're doing what? We're putting our stake in the ground.
We're putting our stake in the ground, and this is the hill we're dying on. But seriously, like, we are fighting. And if you want to take our category, you want to act like women are nothing but a template for men to walk across and self-identify into. Well, I'll tell you something, we will fight really hard before that we give up anything. And you've actually pushed our backs against the wall. Good job, big tech. You pushed our backs against the wall. And now you actually have us as a rival. And so you know what? We women are not going to go down without a fight, and we're never going to go down anyway, because we're going to be here. And you and your crazy ideology can go off and do whatever you want, but it's not going to change the fact that 50% of us are still here, living, breathing, taking care of our families, having children. Right. So you need to actually be a little bit more sensitive to what women actually need and want for ourselves. And having our own sports is one of those things. Boy, you got me riled up here.
Well, it's so fun to feel the passion, because I think people need to see it. Courage calls the courage. And the more people will see how fired up we are, they can see, well, I want to be fired up too. And it just starts with as simple as, being active on your account, speaking out, speaking with your neighbor, your coach, your friends. It's that grassroots level talk that's going to get things moving for us.
No, I'm not going to use, having said that, when I'm on Twitter, I'm not going to be disgusting like the TRAs are. Like, I don't need to use vile examples and terrible language and, go suck my
We don't
whatever.
need to stoop to that level. Yeah.
Like, those people are getting by with all of that, and we're being polite, but we are being firm. And not necessarily even polite, but we're just speaking the truth. I mean, it might not be polite in some people's eyes, but the truth is that we're speaking truth.
Sometimes it hurts,
we're speaking, but we're just telling people what our reality is. I mean, we count too, and this is how we see it. Exactly. And I think that's perfect. And Beth, more and more people, as you can see your account grow, more and more people are starting to tune into this about what's happening, because I think they're starting to see it happen. It's happening to their kids at school. They're being taught this crazy stupidity. And it's gone way too far. I think the pendulum has swung way too far in the other direction. Maybe there was a time when we didn't understand what trans was, or what gay and lesbian was like 50 years ago, whatever. But that's not now. We know what this is, and the pendulum has swung so far, and the Democrats, shame on them, have pushed the pendulum further out to the point where it's really ripping apart this, the very fabric of society. And the good people, the everyday citizen, is just going to sit there and say, look, this is where I am, and I'm just going to be different, and I'm going to be better. So, I just really believe that even though we're being torn apart, I believe the fabric of society in our Western cultures is still very strong. And all we need to do is understand that we're not the only ones that are crazy. Like, these connections help us understand that I'm not going crazy. This is happening, and I have a different logical view of life.
It is.
And we can all just get together.
But we can all stand together. Hands across the aisle moment.
Exactly.
We do not have to play a purity game. We do not have to all agree on everything. Yep. I'm sure me and Linda here disagree on several things in life.
Exactly.
But we drop it. We never talk about that stuff. We just get the job done. We both agree on
for
this,
women's
and we run with it.
Mm-hmm. And here's the thing. Like, even this past weekend, that there was a rally in Vancouver, because we have a father in Canada who was imprisoned now because of this crazy Jordan Peterson. The bill that Jordan Peterson actually warned them in our government in 2016 and 17 that somebody was going to go to jail because they didn't use the right pronouns for their kid. Okay. And everybody said, oh, Jordan Peterson, you're taking that too far. It's too crazy. And
They're
now we have a father sitting.
and now just years later.
Now, like all these years, like not that long ago. And now all of a sudden, 2021, there's a dad sitting in prison because of this very thing. And so there was a rally in Vancouver, in British Columbia, to try to support, the father and try to speak out against this crazy ideology that puts him there, which is just ridiculous. And so I actually submitted a audio for that. But what intrigued me was it was so predictable how the press responds to that. So in the square where all the people were standing, and of course social distancing properly for COVID, out in the gallery, like in the main downtown square.
Okay.
Everything was done to a perfection, to the T. COVID safety, everything. And of course, TRAs are out in the background. They rented vehicles so they could honk horns going around the block. But anyway, the point is this: there were evangelical Christian pastors, there were radical feminists, like people from all walks of life, the entire span of the political spectrum were all represented in that group. There were left people, socialists, there were conservatives, there were capitalists, there were people of all walks of life. And of course, the press called it a right-wing Nazi event.
Yeah.
Right.
It's such a shame.
And so even for us, Beth, like we are nonpartisan in Save Women's Sports. This is not about any political
definitely
point of view.
Nonpartisan. And I consistently get painted as a conservative Christian just because I took up this issue. Like people don't even bother to ask.
They don't even ask. Yeah. And so the point is that to me, it's that, why would that even matter? Like we're talking about women's sports. It shouldn't
matter. And that's why I don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
But
we want to save women's sports. And so that's kind of the point I'm making. So don't believe what people say about Save Women's Sports. We're not affiliated with right or left. Yes, we are capable and we have the freedom in a free country to talk to women who are let's say a Catholic group, or we have to talk to women who are radical feminist group.
I will do any interview that invites me to. I've even done NPR. It just doesn't happen that often.
It doesn't matter.
That side of the table invites me to sit down in a discussion.
Right. So we are not sort of being picky in terms of which groups. We want to get the message out and to everybody, because biology is the basic fabric that underpins anybody or anything. Doesn't matter what ideas or religion or politics or whatever, which is the point that I brought up a long time ago. We're not categorizing sport on the basis of religion or politics or your ideology or how you self-identify. And so I think that we need to hold the line on keeping it nonpartisan, but not being afraid to talk to people for fear of what woke media is going to label it, because what the ACLU is doing now, and they're just completely captured, and they're basically just sort of always, again, they're one of those people that the organizations that keep calling it a trans ban and how we hate trans, but we don't. We're just keeping it very, very clear in terms of the guidelines about what happens in sports.
It's simply about protecting females. I could give, I do not care how someone wants to dress or act, but my rights don't end where someone's feelings begin. It all boils down to that. Like you can identify how you want to all day long, but I still have my rights and I should be guaranteed to that. And I shouldn't be forced to accept a lie as truth.
Yeah.
I don't need my speech compelled. And luckily I am in America and we still do have our freedom.
We still have the First Amendment.
That I do not have to use compelled speech and can tell the truth that the emperor doesn't have clothes on. That's a man, not a woman.
So basically we do have to say congratulations to World Rugby, because and to actually USA Powerlifting, your association, and Dr. Chris Hunt, World Rugby, Ross Tucker, and helped by people like Emma Hilton and so many others.
We do have organizations that are stepping up.
And saying, look, enough is enough. We have to draw the line. And they did it responsibly. Instead of trying to sneak in a policy by stealth, they actually had a public, consultation with all sides, trans and women and everybody.
Right.
And they came up with their policy based on the evidence. And I think in Canada, the good news I have to announce, Beth, is that we're starting a panel like that in Canada within the next week or two. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So starting to look at the real evidence of biology and
but let's touch on that. Let's touch on this, making policies and organization, how language needs to be so clear, and compromise is not the solution here. We see elite athletes forming groups trying to tell us that it's okay for boys to still play on the girls' team if they've been, quote, transitioned pre-puberty, which I don't quite know what their definitions of all that is. They can play with whatever that means, but we shouldn't be forcing young children into making these types of decisions over playing sports. There's just no compromise unless it's a co-ed team where girls are fully acknowledging that risk of playing with boys. We need to keep them sex separated.
Well, here's what I would say. So and I know, because we both been through elementary school and junior high and high school. So we understand there's a number of different areas where you get physical activity. So you get phys ed class, for example, okay? So in a phys ed class, were they ever separated by boys and girls? Not really. Like, you kind of, at least some of the ones that I was involved in as a kid, you had phys ed class. And, I think those were combined a lot of times, and we just had teams that were fair and like mixed boys and girls or whatever. And then the next level up is intramurals or recreation. So if you want to go out and do like a ultimate frisbee league, and I see a lot of people mixing with the frisbee team, it depends on the venue, and basically you have to say what the parameters are of how you're going to play that game. But when you get to serious sports where there's actually real prizes and things at stake, that's where the guidelines have to be very, very clear. But I would say, no matter what you're doing, whether it's a phys ed class, intramurals.
Well, I think intramurals still need solid, clear.
Yeah, they do.
It's not just the sports that win awards. It's all levels.
No, it's true. So what I'm saying though is that whatever level you're at, the rules have to be clear and biology based for fairness. But when you go into like a phys ed class, a lot of times what you see is a teacher will put the girls on the one side with the activity over here and the boys, depending on how dangerous it might be or whatever. So I still think there has to be biology based guidelines, but the venue and the context, it might change a little bit depending on whatever the guidelines are. But what I don't like, Beth, is that when we talk about guidelines for schools or clubs or sports or after school sports now, you're not allowed to talk about the biology, which that to me is the most destructive part of all of this. It doesn't, like you said, it doesn't matter if you're talking phys ed or all the way up. The one
sex
constant
matters.
Is that sex does matter. And so I guess my only point about the sport thing and about this banning trans thing is that there's always, in the history of sports, especially high school sports, there are so many examples of people who try out for a team and they don't make the team. Like, not making the team is a thing. Like, it's like almost like the woke, because they're just social activists. They don't realize that if a person shows up and the coach says, sorry, you can't play today, you're not on the team anymore or whatever, that's the coach's prerogative. They're like, you said they couldn't play on a team. Well, yeah, people don't make teams all the time, right? And there are guidelines to that. So don't act like it's the end of the world if some kid doesn't make a team, because it's happened for all of history. I mean, the one word you hear in sport is no. No, you didn't make team captain. No, you didn't make the team. No, you didn't win a medal.
Didn't win. Yeah.
You hear no a lot more often in sport than you hear, yay, you won the medal or you won, the trophy. So if you can't handle that, then you're using the wrong venue for your personal affirmation.
I've heard you, how do you say it? Like, the sports playing field isn't the place for a psychosocial experiment. Exactly.
It's not the psychosocial therapy. Like, you're using sport, these people, and Biden himself is treating sport as if it's the venue for psychosocial therapy. I mean, sport is not the therapy for this. Like, and it's pretty obvious to me that to have, especially if it's a male trans person, so a male person who identifies as a woman, they're coming into the women's sport, and a lot of times it's because they want to be affirmed. They use that as the way they can surround themselves with women so they can be affirmed. So in this case, women,
it's all
female
about
athletes.
validation for some of them.
Yeah.
Like
So
we've seen in
it's
powerlifting
basically
how the mixed category isn't enough for them. They still
that's
want
what
to
I'm
be
saying.
validated in women.
If they cared about just competing, they would be very happy if we formed a mixed category or a third category, but they don't want that. And the reason they don't want that is they need to use the female category for their validation. So what I'm saying is that tells me that it's never going to work, because that might be working for them once or twice. If it's like one or two trans women, which is males self-identifying, so we'll say trans identifying males. If the males want to come, one male wants to come into a woman's race, oh, he feels great, he's surrounded by women, he's affirmed. But the next guy comes because they're so much better at, their bodies are different, and a lot of them will be better.
It is a floodgate we are opening.
So what's going to happen, Beth? You're going to have a final where it's pure men in the final, and they won't feel affirmed anymore. And then guess what? Oh, well, darn. I was going to be surrounded by women. Now I'm just surrounded by other men. And then they'll walk off, and we will have destroyed all of women's sports for this little bit of time to allow a few of them to validation and have their social therapy. Mm-hmm. And then it'll all be destroyed because women will walk away and it'll be all men and they won't feel validated.
Well, and our record books won't have an asterisk there to tell future generation of girls that female record was set by a man.
Right. So then they'll walk away, and then guess what? We're going to have to rebuild on sex-based boundaries again. So if it goes through that whole cycle, then why are we going there in the first place? Why don't we just save what we have? And
why don't we just forget about this whole sports? Come on.
Save women's sports. That's the whole point. So I want the public who listens to this and the people and our friends and everybody just to understand that it's not that we're hateful. We're just envisioning the fact that it's just going to utterly destroy what we have.
We're being realists.
And we're just going to have to rebuild anyway in the future on the same guidelines we have right now. So what's the point of all this? It's so ridiculous.
Well, I think that if people are wondering what the point of all of this, we do know one good source to point them to, and that would be Jennifer Billick at the 11th Hour blog with number 11, the 11th Hour blog. You can really find a lot of the money trail and just who big tech, big pharma is behind all this nonsense, because it goes deep and there are there's a lot of funding behind us. But look at the headway we're making. We're making laws, and we're just a few women getting together. So like you said,
and I want to also
coming out, we are speaking more. We are going to see this eventual, like you had referred to, tsunami. We've had enough. We're coming.
Yeah, we've had enough. And in fact, Abigail Schreier's book, and I'm going to just also give a shout out because Abigail's been very, very supportive of women's sports. And Abigail, and even like
as
Megyn
Fox
Kelly,
News called her a defender of women's sports.
Yeah,
she was so great on there.
I mean, honest to goodness, like, and her book and researching all the girls that are transitioning. I mean, we need to protect all those girls too.
Yeah,
and so
seriously, rapid onset gender dysphoria is a huge problem. And that's a whole nother like couple hours that we could discuss. But yes, please, let's give Abigail some credit. Her book is Irreversible Damage.
Yeah, irreversible damage, the craze seducing our daughters. Right. And yeah, I mean, the fact is that we just got so many great people who've been standing up. Wolf, the people at Wolf, Concerned Women for America, like everybody.
Concerned Women for America, Independent Women.
Yeah. Alliance Defending Freedom, and those, and all the girls.
American Principles Project. We have all different, all sides.
So many things. So just a big shout out to everybody, and Chelsea Mitchell and Selena Soul and Alana Smith and
Ashley too. Christiana, there's a fourth girl now that most people aren't aware of.
Who is that?
I'm sorry, Ashley, I don't remember your last name.
Okay, well, Ashley,
another young woman that has joined on. So now we have Selena, Chelsea, Alana, and Ashley.
And Ashley. And we
And
have
then
the 2 girls in
Idaho,
college.
it's Madison and Mary, I believe. Forgive me with
Yes.
all this traveling I've been doing.
Yeah.
I'm a little jet
Yeah.
lagged feeling.
Yeah.
And,
But we have girls starting to stand up, and so yeah, so I'm just saying that, you know, we're only at the beginning of all this, Beth, and yet, you know, it's gone far enough that we really have to fight hard now to defend what
you have to keep the
exists. And
pressure on. Yes.
yeah, and so I really appreciate you talking with me about it, because, you know, I'm so passionate about, I just feel like I had my turn, and I want other girls to have their turn. And
For sure.
yeah,
For sure.
yeah.
We would
So
love to see
thanks.
other women stepping up, and we are
Yeah.
going to be seeing it, thanks to women like you, Linda. I've
Well,
really
and you
looked up
too.
to you in this battle, so thank you for
Fist pump, my friend.
being by my side,
Fist pump.
and
Yeah.
you've been a great coach.
Yeah. Well, I'm right behind you, because I was there at the beginning when you started Save Women's Sports, and I like to think that maybe there was some sort of, you know, some role in helping you sort of as a backup person, and sort of
Most
helping
definitely.
promote it. But you did all the work, Beth.
Been a
So you
steadfast
deserve the
advisor.
credit. You've done the work, and you deserve the credit. And I just can't say thank you enough for what you've done. And thank you, United States of America, for stepping up at the state level. We are fighting back against the madness, and don't worry, the executive order isn't the end of the world, because in the United States, the states can do their own thing, and you guys are doing it. So just let's see 50 states more. What, it's up to 31 states?
32
let's see
now.
32 states. See, more than half of the states, United States of America.
It's going so fast, it's hard for me to keep up even. But for those who do want to keep up, you can go to savewomensports.com/state-legislation. We try to keep that updated, but we've also linked to Women's Liberation Front page, where they have up to date on a map. You can click your state and find all the bills. It's just a great thing. So
what's that website?
I'm not for sure what the link is.
Women's Liberation Front.
It's linked on the Save Women's Sports state legislation page that I just mentioned.
Yeah, and I also just last, I always want to call out one more person, and it's Tulsi Gabbard. I just want to say thank you, Tulsi, for starting some of this stuff too, being brave enough to raise the issue within the Democratic Party, who's completely sold us down the river. So I wanted to say thanks to you guys, all of you guys. She's working so hard for us.
She's an amazing woman, and I know they are working hard over in Hawaii at making some changes over there. Really? I have a friend who is a mom in her 40s who runs in track and is a women's champion, and her daughter is now racing against, both of them have had to race against males competing as females. So we have two generations affected by this already. What's it going to take?
Wow.
So it's going to take women like us to keep talking, keep speaking out. Don't let the man get you down. Don't let the bully silence you.
Power.
If you want to get on our team, you can email info@savewomensports.com, or else please follow Linda on Twitter at Coach Blade.
At Coach Blade, until I get punted. But you know what? I'm hanging in there, just on my fingertips. Yeah.
Well, it's great to have you today, Linda. I hope we can do this again real soon.
Oh yeah, always fun, Beth. Hey, you have a great day.
You too. Bye.